Hi everyone, it's Karen here with a quick and easy card using Altenew stamp and dies and Zig clean color real brush markers. Enjoy! I use the Altenew Freesia stamp, which fit perfectly because I wanted to make a long card. I took my Tim Holtz stamp platform and placed the stamp where I wanted it, and then I added some powder to make sure that the embossing would come out perfectly, and then using some Versamark ink I pressed it onto the background. I'm using hot pressed watercolor paper for the background so I could color in the flower. I did stamp it twice, and then I used pearl embossing powder, which is kind of like a white powder but has a pearl essence to it, which is really pretty. I stamped it twice because I wanted to make sure I get a good impression of it, and then I heat set it, the embossing powder, to make sure that it melts all the way everywhere. The embossing powder helps when you add the watercolor, so it keeps the watercolor inside the line. I use Zig clean color real brush watercolor markers and started basically painting inside the flower. I started with two different shades of green, one lighter green and one darker green, and adding the light one first. I added a little bit of the marker and then using my Pentel water brush, just blending it in. I did this a few times until I got the color I wanted. Then I went in with the darker shade of green and just added a few more lines and blended it with the water brush again. The nice thing about this water brush is that it has a very fine tip and it blends the watercolors really well together, and it has water inside, so you don't really have to wet it all the time, just the water drips down whenever you press on it. I continued painting the green part of the stem until I was done. Then I started painting with the purplish pinkish colors. I started with the light one again, and what I do is I color in at the edges and then blend it towards the inside. That way the edges are darker and the inside is lighter, and it gives it a shadow and a depth effect. The nice thing about this watercolor paper that it's hot pressed and it's very smooth, so it's really easy to blend things, and it doesn't absorb the water as much, so it really blends things nicely in the surface. So I just went ahead, and you can just continue adding water until it blends it how you like it. Then I went in with the darker color of purple and started doing the same thing, adding it in the edges and then blending it in. These Zig markers are just beautiful because they really blend nicely as watercolors, or you can use them just as regular markers. They have so many uses and they're just gorgeous. I ended up splurging and getting the 80 marker one. There's 80 colors, so I just figured I might as well. I knew I would use them a lot because I really love watercoloring. It's really relaxing. So as you can see, I'm continuing to add, and the nice thing, now you start seeing how the embossed ink repels the watercolor and creates a really nice white outline, and if you actually look at it closer, it is pearlized, which is really nice. So I really liked how this was turning out, and it was just so easy because the lines really keep inside, the embossing lines really keep. I'm just drying it up because I wanted to add a little bit more shading. And the nice thing is that if you actually go outside the lines, you can cut this out. I have the die cut that match, so I could cut it out. I took some yellow shades of the markers and I started adding them in the middle, in the center. I really liked that to put a little bit of yellow in it, but it actually blended it and turned into a beautiful orange kind of looking shade, which was really nice. and I just kept on fixing until I was happy with the way the flower turned out. The fact that it had so many shadings of colors, it really gave it depth, and it looked like it was a really nice, beautiful, full bloom flower. Because I didn't do such a good job at staying between the lines, I guess I should go back to kindergarten. I did take the die cut that comes with the set and just cut out the flower. I used some macrospore tape to just hold the die on top of the flower and then run it through my Big Shot machine and cut it out. I also used the same paper and cut out a couple more of the same die cuts, just the flower itself white on its own, so I could use as a backing and make the flower a bit thicker when I'm adding it to the card. This is a great way to create a 3D effect, and it's easier because you're having the flower backed up with a little bit more thickness. Then I use my art glitter glue because it has such a fine tip, and glued the two pieces onto the back of my flower so I could have a 3D effect for the card, and you can see the thickness on the side. Now it was time to assemble the card, and this somehow took me a long time. I had so much fun watercoloring, but when it came to assembling the card, I wanted to create a very simple card, and it was just taking me so long to figure out how I wanted the layout. So I took a hole punch. This is a border punch from Martha Stewart, and basically I was trying to figure out how to make it look properly, and I ended up screwing up the punching, so I ended up cutting a piece of it where I had screwed up and putting it on a long card. I really wanted to create a long card, and this is 7 by 4 inches. It doesn't really fit a standard envelope, but I really wanted to have somehow a long card because I really wanted that card to go lengthwise, the flower. So I really like that. So I added one of the strips that I had left over and just cut it with my scissors because this is where I wanted to add the sentiment. So I took some, I just kind of placed where I wanted the flower, and then I took a sentiment. It's a happy birthday sentiment from the same set, and then using my platform, my Tim Holtz platform, I grabbed it and I wanted to stamp the sentiment onto it. So I put the flower where I thought I wanted it, and then added the stamp, took away the flower, and then pressed it onto my stamping platform to make sure that I get it in the spot that I want it. I'm holding it with a metal, and then I'm holding it with a magnet, and then I took some of my powder tool and just brushed it over the area where I wanted to stamp to make sure that nothing stuck there. And here I am adding it again. I'm doing it twice to make sure that I get a good impression. This time I took some black embossing powder from Ranger. This is the super fine one, so it should give a really good impression, and I'm just adding it to the background. As you can see, I made a mistake here. There must have been something sticky at the bottom, maybe from the glue, and you'll see how I get to remove it after. But first I'm going to heat set this to make sure that the happy birthday stays in place and nothing comes off. As I said before, I had made a mistake and something was gooey there, and it got some embossing ink on it. So I took my Monosand eraser. This is a great eraser. It gently removes anything that you have made a mistake on. You just have to rub it on to the surface and remove whatever mistake you made. And as you can see, I don't know why the embossing ink, even though I put the powder, it did splatter a little bit. So I was able to remove that. I took some of my tape runner and just put it behind the flower and then glued the flower onto my background. Then I took some black liquid pearls and added a few pearls onto my background. Finally, I used the Zig markers to create a few splatters in the background. I just added some water to my mat, and then just wetting the tip of the brush, just banged it with another paintbrush to just get those really thin, cute splatters onto the background. Thanks so much for watching. If you loved my quick and easy card, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. For more inspiration, subscribe to my channel and visit me on my website. Bye!